philosophy family. Friends, it's my honor and privilege to extend a hearty welcome to all of you, to all the students, scholars, and philosophy and professors of philosophy across the country, and to the scholars of other disciplines. Friends, today we have two eminent speakers. One is Professor Sanyam Dubey in the first session, and Professor Anil Kumar Tiwari in the second session. Today, Professor Sanyam Dubey will speak on philosophy, teaching, research, and job perspective, and Professor Anil Kumar Tiwari will reflect on philosophy and human personality. Today, both the topics are very beneficial for all of us, to all the beginners of philosophy and to all the teachers of philosophy for orientation before the students. Friends, before inviting both the speakers, let me speak a few words on their academic journey. Dr. Sanyam Dubey is now working at the Professor, Department of Philosophy, Navanalanda Mahabir, deemed to be University, Ministry of Culture, Government of India. Regarding his educational pursuits, he has completed MA with 3 gold medals, completed NET from UGC and PhD, and he has also completed PG Diploma in Yoga and Meditation. Besides his teaching assignment, he is acting as the managing editor, the Sanyam, the bilingual journal of Indian Council of Philosophical Research. Professor Dubey has many years of experience in different administrative committees in ICPR, and he has brought remarkable reforms in ICPR to popularize philosophy and to heighten the glory of philosophy across the country. Professor Dubey also carries assignment and expert members, and he has also made different innovatives in popularizing philosophy. Dr. Dubey, to his credits, has 26 publications in book forms, which have been very popular among the teachers and scholars. Dr. Dubey has also edited different books, written chapters in different books, and some translation works. Besides this, he has contributed 41 research articles for the noble cause of philosophy and philosophical reflection, having teaching and research experience of more than 2 decades in different UG and PG levels of different reputed colleges and universities. He has organized a number of national and international seminars, conferences, workshops, and he has also developed the innovative syllabus in philosophy. He has got so many awards, felicitations, fellowship, honors, and he has also guided a number of PhD students and many more things that I do not want to reflect upon due to the positive time. He's a man of creativity. He has always tried to make philosophy popularized across the globe, and he has also continued his research in philosophy, philosophical teaching, and the innovations in philosophy. I welcome and convey my regard to Professor Sanyam Dubey in first session. In the second session, we have with us Professor Anil Kumar Tiwari. Professor Anil Kumar Tiwari is serving as an assistant professor, School of Philosophy and Culture, Sri Mata Vaishno Devi University, Katra, Jammu Kashmir, since 2007. He is presently also working as an associate researcher in Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Simla, Dr. Tiwari is graduated from University of Allahabad with MA in Philosophy and PhD from IIT Kanpur. In 2010, Professor Tiwari has made his doctoral thesis on the problem of personal identity in Buddhism. He has also published more than 30 articles in national and international reputed journals. He has completed minor project funded by UGC. Professor Tiwari has many major areas of research like Neo, Buddhism, Mimamsa, Vedanta system of Indian philosophy. He is also serving as nodal officer in the Hindi cell at SMBDU, and he has also got many awards and felicitation for his contribution to philosophy. He's a man of creativity, and he has made different research program on popularizing philosophy. I don't want to reflect upon them. I welcome both the speakers to this Sunday webinar. Today you have also listened, that is before you have also listened on the speech of Professor Susin Debe in the annual session of Philosophy Family. Today I welcome our admin host, Professor Pramod Kumar Das. He is the man behind all kinds of philosophical reflection. He is taking all kinds of pain to invite the senior professor of philosophy for the noble cause of philosophical reflection to popularize philosophy across the globe. I also welcome our co-admin and regular moderator, Professor Dr. K. Omnan Rao, to moderate the intersession. With this, once again, I convey my regards to all the teachers, scholars, and students of philosophy and other discipline to be connected with us in the Sunday webinar. I once again offer my gratitude for all of them for their connectivity with us. And with this, I would like to request Professor Susin Debe in the first session to reflect on his scheduled topic. Sir Pranam. Sir Pranam. Over to Professor Dube.
My very humble namaskar and pranam to this distinguished platform.
I welcome Professor Dr. Anil Kumar Tiwari to commence his speech on philosophy and the human personality, and he will reflect upon how philosophy is related with human personality. Over to Professor Tiwari.
Ji, namaskar. Am I audible?
Yes, audible, sir.
So, first of all, I pay my regards to all the dignitaries present in this meeting. And I must say thank you to the organizers and their encouragement to all the participants. This is a good initiative, and we see in the whole country such initiatives are taken up, particularly after this corona crisis. And it has generated genuine concerns about the philosophy. My Guruji, Professor Sabhajit Mishra, I say pranam to him. My friend, Professor Susin Dube, namaskar. It was very nice to share the session with you. All my other colleagues, Pankaj Basotia ji is connected, so at least I can say we too are from now Shimla. At present, I am in Shimla in the Indian Institute of Advanced Study, completing my second spell of associateship. So in the month of November, I am here, and it's pretty cold. Temperature is somewhere around 3-4 degrees. So you can guess from my dress. So let me just share something for your visuals, and that could be somewhat helpful. So let me please know once you can see the screen which I am sharing. Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir, it's visible, sir. Visible, sir.
So the topic which is taken for me for this session is philosophy and human personality. So I would first take up the basic understanding of what philosophy is. And my friend Susim talked about philosophy, and he had very nice words. And that shows that, yes, philosophy is something which is really fantastic. And this is agreeable to all the people who are in philosophy. But when it comes to define philosophy by the community, philosophers community, so you can see how philosophy is defined by the philosophers. And there you find a lot more disagreements. And it is that which in some sense forms the core of what we call academic philosophy. If we look at a little bit the etymology of philosophy, so phil is the root word, and this means love. And wherever you find this phil term associated, there you can find love of this or that. And Sophia, as you all are familiar, is knowledge or wisdom. So literally philosophy means love for wisdom, love for knowledge. And wherever you find phil, like philanthropy or philology or any such expression, so it is love of this or that, but in reference to philosophy, it is love of wisdom. And if we look at the Sanskrit equivalent of this expression, so it is darshanam. And we understand by darshanam something which enables us to see, to understand, to know, to visualize. Drishyate anena iti darshanam. So here, this particular enterprise has got an instrumental role in knowing something, in understanding something, in seeing something. Now, what is common between what we say philosophy and what we say darshanam? It is basically the understanding which is generated through a serious engagement in philosophical discourse. And if we see a very ordinary, not so enlightening understanding of philosophy, so we can say philosophy is what philosophers do, and it doesn't reveal much of that. Now, what philosophers do, we see diversity of efforts, and all these efforts are supposed to generate understanding. And that understanding must be connected with what we are, what life is, and what are the things which are surrounding us. So, in short, we can say that philosophical discussion or philosophical discourse is supposed to generate understanding. That is the crux. Now, if we look at this very essential thing which philosophy targets, one can raise this question: why do we require understanding? Look at the efforts in the higher education in India, and look at all the new central universities which are opened by the central government. You hardly find the Department of Philosophy. And if it is there, it was one of the last departments to be opened in the central universities. So what this effort is demonstrating, what this effort or this very practice is showing, don't we require understanding? Or
Philosophia.
whether it is philosophy only which generates understanding. There are other disciplines that don't generate understanding. So no one would say that other disciplines don't generate understanding. But then what is peculiar about philosophical discourse? And what is peculiar about the kind of understanding which is expected of philosophical discourse? Now, here we can see that all other disciplines certainly generate understanding, and that understanding is largely a kind of enabler for how to do things, how to behave with the things. They hardly enlighten us how to lead a harmonious life. And it is this which constitutes the crux or core of philosophical discourse. Now, if you look at various efforts which are undertaken in the name of philosophy, so certainly we want to understand who we are, and we want to understand what are the things which are surrounding us. Not only that, what is this very effort of knowing something? And how do we know that we have known something correctly? And what are the measurements which can be applied to understand whether we have known something correctly? But merely an awareness regarding the reality or what the very awareness is does not satisfy our curiosity. We also engage ourselves in appreciating certain things. So if our appreciation is connected with the objects, the inanimate things, artifacts, it is one kind of appreciation. We also appreciate human behavior. That is another kind of appreciation. And there is something peculiar about appreciating human behavior, which is not essential to when we appreciate any object or artifact. So these are three basic areas in which philosophical discussions operate. Now one can raise this question that sciences are much more equipped to answer in a much more convincing way what we are and what are the things surrounding us. Consider, for example, today, almost everyone is convinced about the nature of reality as it is proposed by physics. And for a good number of people, one would say majority of thinkers, reality is just the reality of physics, nothing more. But then someone would argue that no, there is some problem with this. But remember, the way physics proposes reality, that is foundational to all the things which we are doing today. Look at what is the medicinal practices which we are following. The biological sciences seek to understand very life in terms of something which is proposed by physics. They don't assume anything more than that. And look at the present crisis, Corona, when it was generated, when it got spread in the whole world. We were not looking for any other solutions. All the temples were closed. Gods were not helping much. We were looking for solution from the very thing where we got the problem, the biotechnology labs, right? Now, if our solutions are coming from the very source where is problem, now can we say that this solution could be a sustainable solution? how can we think, or how can it be convincing that there is something which is the source of problem as well as the source of solution? I throw this question for your reflection. Now, my friend Susim talked about the relevance of philosophy and how it is a necessity. It must be there in the discourse. So these are some bookish answers which I could gather. Why should one study philosophy? So someone would say that the problems which are called philosophical problems are perennial in nature, and therefore we have to deal with them so long as our life continues. The others would say that philosophical discourse is so valuable that one cannot be called educated if one is not aware of such things. Consider the awareness regarding the historical happenings in the domain of knowledge, cultural elements, and something which is essential to what we call philosophical traditions. Again, consider there is a session going on, so I will join later. Thank you. So another response which we get from, again, books, that philosophical discussion is essential for any person or in any age or in any historical succession, because of the very requirement of what we call understanding. And what is understanding, we will see after a few minutes. So there cannot be any age, or there cannot be any person, there cannot be any historical events where we say that understanding is something which is useless. Now, what kind of understanding? Certainly it is related to our life, which is not properly dealt in the reality proposed by physics. And consider another response, that engagement in philosophical discussions and also an awareness regarding what had happened in the past in the domain of intelligentsia. One would say that it is necessary to get insight which is developed by our ancestors, and they found some solution to their problems, and some problems which we face today, they are common. But then we can get the solution offered by them or the way they lived. But there are certain problems today, they are new for us. Our ancestors did not face that. Now, can we say that the insights which they developed are useless in terms of these new problems? There could be debate on this. There could be interesting observations on that. And I throw this question also for your consideration, to think whether the new problems can be tackled with by the solutions available, or we require new solutions, right? So that is another question. So let us move on. I am throwing the questions also for your consideration, so that some kind of engagement you can feel on your part, not just being a listener or casual attendee. Now, when we say that philosophy must enable us, and it must enable us in a unique way in which other disciplines don't help. So consider these questions I have floated here. Who am I? It's very popular and traditional question. But then, don't we require an answer for ourselves today? The answers which our ancestors arrived at, are they useless? Or they are not enlightening in any ways? They are not helping in any ways? One would argue, yes, they are not helping. Despite all the wonderful responses from wonderful philosophies, we are fighting. Too much violence we see in this world. We are hating our neighbors. There are a lot more individual issues. There are a lot more family issues, social issues, environmental issues. Despite all these wonderful philosophies, we are facing these issues at all these levels. So to some extent, those answers need to have serious consideration, whether they are useful or not. Again, this is a question for all of us.
Hello.
And the things which are surrounding us, what are they? How am I connected to those things which are surrounding us? The animate as well as inanimate objects. And then the most important question, how to live a harmonious life with the diversity of the reality in which we are living. So philosophical discourse is now essential to deal with these questions in all these modern idioms and phrases. In some sense, the old answers may not do. We need to have at least some questions which need some kind of novel solutions. And now I'm moving to the other part of the talk, which is the concept called human personality. So here I will be restricting myself to a very contemporary Indian philosopher. Some of you might know that name, Agrahar Nagaraj. I'll refer to his philosophy in order to deal with this second concept, human personality. For my personal reasons, that I find that philosophy very convincing. And here, at least, we find solutions to the problems which we are dealing with, we are struggling with at our individual, family, society, and environment level. Agrahar Nagaraj was born on 14th January 1920 in Hassan district of Karnataka. His philosophy is given this name Madhyastha Darshana, Sahastitvavada. When I go through his ideas, I find it's very close to different philosophical systems of India. None of the systems can be fully in conformance with his ideas, but he has drawn something from every system of Indian philosophy. So you can say that this is a very synthetic, integral system of philosophy. Why it is called Madhyastha Darshana? He gave an answer to this. He said that if we look for the reality proposed by physics, that means materialism, we cannot understand who we are. We cannot deal with the problems in which we are today. Similarly, if we think each and everything as spiritual, again there is a problem. We cannot deal with the issues. And the ultimate thing which philosophy must serve to us today, it must enable us to deal with the issues in which we are. If it is not helping, then of course nobody is going to accept it. Consider, for example, I indicated that in different institutions, philosophy departments are not established. The most unfortunate thing is that in different institutions, philosophy departments are getting closed. Students are not coming to study this particular. There are only few universities where you find students in the whole country. Why this is the situation? There must be a reason for that. There must be a reason for the problems which we are facing. At least some might be thinking that this discipline is not helping us. If our objective is to get job, how many jobs we can create? Largely it is teaching. And if you look at the approach, departments are not introduced in new institutions, precisely for the reason that they don't think that this discipline is going to help them, right? There is a session going on, sir, so I'll join little later. So here Agrahar Nagaraj suggested that the ancient way of dealing with the issues, philosophical issues, and understanding life needs a serious consideration. So he has steered between what is called materialism and spiritualism or idealism, and that is why his philosophy is called Madhyastha Darshana. Another significant point which we need to underline is the philosophy of coexistence. We see the Nyaya philosophy, the Mimamsa philosophy, the Sankhya Yoga, all these systems which are called pluralist philosophies. It is subscribing to that. The reality is plural. There are many things, there are many animate and inanimate things, and they all exist together, right? So this coexistence is a reality, and therefore it is necessary that we must recognize this coexistence. If we look at our behavior, our understanding, somewhere we find we are not ready to accept coexistence. It may sound strange, but it is there. That is why we are struggling. Religions are struggling precisely because one is not ready to accept the existence of the other. But coexistence is a reality. And unless we recognize it with all sincerity, we are not going to live in peace. We are not going to live with harmony, right? So Agrahar Nagaraj says that philosophical discourse must enable us to live a harmonious life at 4 levels of our existence: individual, family, society, and environment. So I will briefly discuss the first one, which is related to human personality, individual level of existence. So what he proposes, and I find it very convincing, the way things are proposed, and it is in terms of proposal only. There is no pretension that you need to accept it. The proposal is to be seen seriously, and if you find it convincing, only then you need to do something with it. Now, what is an individual? Who is a human being? What is essential about our being? So he proposes that we are coexistence of something which is not physical. We can call it self or I, and then something which is physical. Now, to live a harmonious individual life is essential to live a peaceful life in the whole of reality. Unless there is harmony at the level of individual, we cannot have the world in good shape. The problems which we see at international level, at national level, at regional level, and all these things, it is because as an individual, we are not living a harmonious life. And why we are not living harmonious life? Precisely because there is a lack of understanding regarding who we are actually. And then what are the things engaged or involved in our being? So he proposes that let us try to see things in this way, see our being in this way, that there is a coexistence of something which is mental or non-physical and something which is physical. There are arguments to establish that. I'm not going into that, but just see that we have two very different kinds of requirements. We want happiness, we want respect, for example, we want trust, we want love, we want affection, and so many things. These desires, we want a continuity of these. It's not the case that we want respect today, not tomorrow, or not day after. It was never the case that our ancestors did not want that, or children don't want, only elder want. Respect is something which everyone wants, everyone's desire. And there is this requirement in continuity. Each and everyone wants respect. I'm taking just one example. It can be multiplied in continuity. So there is some requirement in our being which is of continuous in nature. And look at the other dimension of our being, that is body. We require physical facilities for a healthy body. For example, food we require to sustain this body. We require vehicles to transport this body. We require clothes to cover this body. But remember, these requirements are limited and they are temporary. When we confuse, then we are engaged in amassing wealth. We require just one house to live. But look at the people. They are looking for a house in every city, or maybe a house in every country, every planet. And for that, what they are not doing? We require just one set of clothes to cover this body. But look at the wardrobes of the rich people. How many set of clothes they have accumulated.
Basangsi Jaidani Jotha Bihai, Novani Grinnahati Naraho Parani. I said by Sri Krishna in Sankhya Yoga Gita.
Yeah, yes. That is nice to hear. So look at this physical requirement. It is temporary in nature, but then we go on earning, we go on purchasing things, we go on producing things without realizing that these are required in limited quantity. Similarly, if we look at the requirements of the self, they are qualitative in nature. The requirements of our body are quantitative in nature. That's limited, right? And we have done too much harm to environment precisely in oblivion to this very quantitative requirement. As per one estimate, today in the whole world, we are producing 3 or 4 times more than food we require to feed the whole of population in the world. Why we are doing that? This is certainly going to create, and it has already created, environmental hazards. Similarly, in the self, we require right kind of understanding, right kind of feeling. Our body has got some kind of physical or chemical activities, and so long as they continue, our body will remain healthy. It will serve our purpose. Otherwise, there will be problem, and then it will require some solution. Similarly, if we look at different activities which are called non-physical activities in the self, desires, thought, expectations, etc. We can also see the different activities which are physical in nature in our body, eating, walking, etc., talking. Consider, I have already talked about the continuity of requirement. Whatever we require which is of non-physical kind, that is a continuous requirement. Food we require in limited quantity only when we are hungry. If we are not hungry and we are eating, then this is going to create problem. Look at our human behavior. Many times, many people eat without proper hunger. If we are doing that, then we are in fact not understanding the requirement of our body. Taste is the requirement of self. Taste is physical, non-physical requirement. Taste is the requirement of self. But if for taste purpose we are stuffing our body with certain things which are not good, then what is going to happen? A small virus like corona will simply take our life. Look at the deaths which we have seen in previous 2 years. I dare to say that there was not a single corona death. In what sense? In the sense that nobody died only because of corona. They already accumulated a lot more problems in their body, and then they were a kind of balloon with full air, and then corona came and just pricked and they gone, right? So that all shows a kind of misunderstanding, a kind of wrong understanding regarding what we are, who we are. Now, why this is so? Consider, if we are to live a harmonious individual life, we have to see that our self is in harmony and our self is also in harmony with this body. Now, what is it to say that the self is in harmony, and what is the evidence? So the proposal is that all the activities which are seen in the self must be based on knowledge. They should not be based on assumption. What happens? All the things, all desires, all thoughts, or expectations, which are the activities in the self, if they are based in assumption, if they are driven by, let us say, the sensory feelings, if the sensory feelings and assumptions are taking away all the activities of the self, then certainly we are going to land up in problems. And therefore, the proposal is that the activities of the self must be rooted in knowledge. And then assumption must be based on knowledge, not the other way around. All our problems, just look at individual level. Forget about the society, forget about the international issues. Look at the individual situation. Each of us can just consider ourselves and then see in all 24 hours how many things we perform on the basis of assumption and how many things we perform on the basis of knowledge, and how those things are influencing our relationship with our family members, with the society, and at the nature at large. So the proposal is that if all the activities in the self are rooted in knowledge, and then recognition and appropriation are drawn from knowledge, then the self can be called in harmony. And if the activities are rooted in assumption, then the self is not in harmony. Now, what we are doing to ensure that the activities of the self are rooted in knowledge, not in assumption. A lot more things can be discussed, and if some of you are interested, you can just hit upon the website Madhyastha Darshana. You type and then you will get a lot more discussion. So due to the paucity of time, I won't be, I have to conclude it now. Now, in very brief, as I proposed that the self is in harmony, that can be seen when its activities are rooted in knowledge. Now, our body has got a good shape, a good health. This can be captured in this phrase, that harmony of the self with the body. Remember, it is, since we all are the coexistence of self and body, and to have the harmony in our life, we need to attain harmony at both these levels. So what is it to have harmony at the level of body? Two concepts are proposed. And there is a kind of fresh interpretation of these already familiar words, Sanyam and Swasthya. What is Sanyama? Agrahar Nagaraj says that Sanyam is the responsibility. Sanyam is the feeling of responsibility in the self to take care of body. A self is in Sanyama, a state of Sanyam, or in a state of self-regulation, if it is carrying out its responsibility towards the body. What does it mean? Suppose something is not good for our health, and the self decides to take it in because it is tasty, then that self is not in fact carrying out the responsibility towards the body. Because once you consume anything which is not good for health, then certainly your body is going to suffer. If you consume something without proper hunger, then certainly body is going to suffer. And if body suffers, certainly we are going to be in trouble individually. And with a troubled body, what we can do? Now, body must be kept well, and that wellness of body is called health. Now, health is understood in terms of two things. Number one, body is ready to act according to the requirements of the self. Whenever you want to get up, your body supports, you get up. Whenever you want to study, your body supports, you can sit for longer hours, you can study. And if that doesn't take place, what happens normally? We set an alarm for 4 o'clock, let us say. But then here in Shimla, it is cold, so alarm is ringing, and then you just close it, you shut it down. What is happening here? The body is not supporting the wishes or desires of I or the self, which means body is not healthy. If it is not getting up as per the requirement of the self, then it is not healthy. So first sign of health is that body acts according to the need of I. The second thing is that all the body parts are in harmony. That means there is a proper balance in all parts of the body. So health is understood in terms of these two. So the self and the body, we are both. We cannot say that, oh, body is something which is just for this life, and it is all, we need to take care of the self only. No. If you want to live a good, harmonious life in this world, you want to be a good person, you want to be a good family member, you want to be a good person in the society, certainly you have to take care of the requirements of these two things. And they constitute our existence in this world. And nobody knows what happens after this world, whether it is the self which is coming and going, etc. Are they based on knowledge or assumption? At least this is the question each of us need to raise, whether they are rooted in our knowledge or there is too much things which are assumed. So here, what we call human personality is understood as a coexistence of the self and body. And if we want to be a desirable, a healthy, a virtuous person, we need to take care of these two things. If we just leave one, certainly we are going to be in trouble. So it is a matter of reflection for all of us to see how much time we are investing in taking the need of body and how much time we are taking care of the self. And if we lose balance, certainly we become a disharmonious person, and a disharmonious person cannot be a good family member. And if that is the case, so a disharmonious family cannot be a good family in the society. And if there is no harmony in the society, certainly we are going to do a lot more nasty things. That is what happening today in every corner of the world. With all the wonderful philosophies, we are unable to deal with them, right? So human personality must be taken care of in view of this proposal, and I find this is quite convincing, and this can be attained with right kind of understanding, and that right understanding can be generated through the modern system of education. It can be discussed right from the beginning of schooling. Each and every child must be educated in terms of understanding who the child is, what are the requirements of the self of the child and the body of the child. And once the child is familiar that, okay, I am both self and body, and so is my parents and all, then certainly we have to work for harmony in both the components. As of now, look at, I often cite the example of Ramakrishna Paramhans. He got cancer, as I learned from different sources. He was quite careless about his body. He hardly cared about body. So is the case with Raman Maharshi. He went into Samadhi and he hardly cared about the body. Here you have a modern thinker, Agrahar Nagaraj died in 2016, not very far away from our time. He said that he attained Samadhi, but then he did not find anything in the Samadhi. So he said that then he followed Sanyama. And there he could realize all these things, these ideas, which I am also proposing, and I find that convincing. And once we live a good life, then certainly we can pursue all other things, but certainly we have to see in a proper perspective who we are. So here I close, and I hope I have exceeded a bit of the time. So I must say thank to all of you for bearing with me of all these things. So I'm stopping my sharing. So now it is up to the organizers what they are going to see with that. Thank you all.
Sir, may I say something?
Please, sir. Okay, thanks so much, Professor Tiwari, for making a very conceptual clarification in philosophy and human personality. In connection with Professor Dube's tuning philosophy for inculcating higher values and visualizing philosophy as a hidden current to meet the new challenges of life, you have discussed how philosophy is very instrumental in understanding life,
Sir,
the
feedback
human
please.
personality, and helping to live a harmonious life, which is rooted in knowledge. And now, today we are very fortunate to listen such a nice topic from you. It's very innovative. And over to Professor Dr. K. Omnam Rao to interact with the audience and to make a connectivity with the speaker. And over to Professor Rao.
Both the talks were really interesting. Well, Professor Dubey tried to see a practical side of philosophy and did not want to keep or make philosophy abstract. He is of an opinion that philosophy is the invisible undercurrent that flows, but because being not explicit, it is simply carried away and it is not being focused on. So that's how philosophy is losing sense in the real empirical world, and it's how though it has a lot of strength and potential to deliver, and no subject can sustain without philosophy, but it is losing sense in the real world, in the real scenario. So that was the point that Professor Dubey wanted to highlight, that we need to make the element of philosophy being present in all the disciplines that we teach and that we study, or so that's how we can make a sense to philosophy and make it more convenient as a discipline, and it's truly so, because philosophy is connected with life, and all the disciplines that they're all life based, and that's how philosophy is so relevant, so basic, so fundamental, but it has somehow lost its way. And even Professor Anil Tiwari was also pointing at that issue, that even though philosophy is much concerned about generating understanding, but somehow we are more focused on the physical overtones, but we somehow are losing the metaphysical undercurrents. So we somehow focus on the living, but we in the process of living, we have somehow lost the very essence of life. So he makes a distinction. What I see is he tries to make a distinction between living and life, and in the process of living, somehow we are losing life, and that's the pain that Professor Tiwari I think carries in his mind, because we are more running for the empirical way of living, and all forgetting the undercurrent that is flowing in, and that is life, and somehow we are losing the life that way. So, well, I am not synopsizing. I invite people to interact with both the speakers, but at first I would like to call Barsa Bisoi, because she had a question for the last speaker. Well, if she's there. Barsa Bisoi, you wanted to ask something? Well, she's not unmuting. Well, in the meantime, Paul, Dr. Paul wanted to ask something. Yes, are you there? Pankaj Paul or something like that. Just now he said he wanted to say something. Well, he's also not there. Yes. Well, Rajkumar Devranjan. Well, anyway, nobody is responding. Well, I request. Yes.
Dr. Rajkumar will speak.
Yes, some Jimmy Kalita wants to speak, or Dr. Rajkumar. Dr. Rajkumar, nobody is unmuting. Well.
Sir, I want to say.
Yes, Jimmy Kalita. Yes. Welcome. Yes.
Philosophy is really essential for life and interesting as well as. But as Anil sir's speech, so I have a point of view about why philosophy is unpopular in universities and institutions. It's come with a question, what is future of philosophy? It is little bit problematic to answer appropriately because in formal education, the syllabus of philosophy is in many universities is past-oriented or honor-oriented study. That means we study something more precisely to give honor to the person who advocated some theories, less to the development of the philosophy. It is also deducible that this kind of things is making young mind performing as old. 2000 years old philosophers are by-hearted by the students, but not the recent things. Instead of climbing from past to futures, we are stuck in past. That's why I think philosophy is unpopular and losing its grip from the universities and new world. Thank you.
Dr. Tiwari, how do you
Yeah,
see
that
philosophy
that
is
is
not updated? Yes,
that is
how do
a
you see
good
it?
observation, and that the syllabi which we have adopted, it is largely history of ideas. Now, I indicated in the beginning of my presentation that we do require knowledge regarding how our ancestors thought in their times. But we are facing certain new issues also. And as I proposed in the end, that we have two dimensions of our being. Our ancestors proposed something, and we have diversity of that. It's not that they have not taken care of these two dimensions. Each and every system has its own proposal. But then somehow, because of the very traditional or very rote kind of approach in the departments of philosophy, we are somehow losing the current of the present time. So it requires a serious revision in the presentation of these wonderful ideas which are there, but then somehow they are not coming in fore. Consider, for example, when we talk of the utility of philosophy, only two things come to our mind. One is logic and the other is ethics. Nobody talks about the serious discourse which has taken place in the domain of metaphysics or epistemology. Somehow we say that these are the very core areas of philosophy and the others are not convinced. It requires a serious reflection to see how metaphysical and epistemological discourse are essential to generate right kind of understanding in the young minds. The kind of irrationality we see in different television channels, that is one kind of example. The kind of mindless talks we see on the part of politicians, another kind of example. It is because we have failed to communicate the very rational components which are profusely available. And why? Because largely we think that Indian philosophy is talking about otherworldly things. It is all about moksha, it is all about spiritual pursuits. It doesn't have much to say about what we are to do today in our life. And this has been the impression right from the beginning of, let us say, the British pattern of education. Somehow we could not do good to philosophy by bringing out these elements in not just English or in not just Hindi, but in all regional languages in much more convincing way. Look at the libraries where we find philosophy texts. Many people write mindlessly. I don't know. It would be very problematic to say, but yes, there are very distasteful kind of writing and presentations. And that generates a negative impression about the very disciplined philosophy. Now, in the higher education system, today we see the utility part much more. and little utility which people see in philosophy is in terms of ethics and logic. And when we try to impart the knowledge regarding these two disciplines, we do it in a very bookish style. Ethics turns out to be largely a kind of preaching, and students hardly feel attached to the things which are talked about. And that is why it is essential to see that we start with something which is already familiar, which is there with the children, which is there with the students, and our presentation is in such a way that they easily associate to the wisdom which is available in the philosophies. So a lot more revision, reflection is required, and a serious thinking is required. And here we require, in fact, intellectual leadership also. And it's not just for philosophy, but certainly since philosophy is in crisis, so we require fantastic minds to come forward, and they must be encouraged. One can afford, let us say, a mediocre mind in any, let us say, social sciences, which is not correct. But someone would say that, okay, you study economics, you will get job. You study sociology, psychology, you study anthropology, you will get job. But if you study philosophy, you have to face problems. And somehow the people who are already in the discipline of philosophy, they think that, yes, that is correct. And therefore, if you look at the recruitments, they can recruit anyone in philosophy, irrespective of their intellectual or other competence, which is essential for doing philosophy. So they say that, okay, anyone can do philosophy, which is not correct, in fact. Not anyone can convince. That is our experience, right? It's not the case that we can convince very easily to the other. So from this very thing, we can see how many people are required to take up this job very seriously. And certainly it requires a good hold on language in which the traditional wisdom is lying. We do require direct access to those texts in Sanskrit, in Pali, in Prakrit, in Tamil, in Malayalam. There are wonderful things lying there to be explored. And they need to be presented in a much more convincing way. Otherwise, situation will not improve. And the present scenario you see, as I indicated, hardly any new institution is ready to establish philosophy department. So Jima is very right in suggesting that we have not been able to translate the wisdom in our contemporary language in much more convincing way, and be able to relate it to the kind of things which we require. We require understanding, right understanding in the self. We require correct assessment regarding our physical necessities. Since we failed in that, so those who can make, they continue amassing wealth without understanding what they are going to do with that. Look at many civil servants. I heard one civil servant stocked currency notes in behind the tiles of bathroom. Is this right understanding regarding what we are going to do with money? Look at the business persons. They are stocking the different produce just to get profit. Do we produce food for profit? Is that right understanding? So somehow we have failed. And we require, in fact, serious concern. And it can be only when we start from the very beginning. Our children must be aware. They must be educated in such a way they understand what are their physical requirements. Nobody has set a line that, okay, this much physical facilities will do. And therefore, there is no feeling that I have now enough. Because we have not set the bottom line. So it's like pouring water in a bottomless bucket. Unless we set this line, okay, this much physical facility will do. These many houses will do. These many vehicles will do. We have not set the limit. So it's a matter of concern for each of us at individual level. Let us fix these things. And it's not any calculation, in fact. We have to do it. We have to talk it with all our friends or family members, to ourselves. We have to individually set the limit. How many pairs we require for cloth? How many pairs of shoes we require as an individual? Individually, we have to set these limits. Then we can claim, yes, we have now got proper understanding regarding our physical requirements. And then look at the requirement of the self, the understanding. We leave it. Parents care too much about food of child. They hardly think what the child is doing with his mind, his or her mind. So parents have failed to attend to the requirement of right understanding, the requirement of the self.
Tiwari ji.
Unattended almost.
Yes,
Tiwari.
Dr. Tiwari, well,
Okay, so yes,
we got your point. We got your point. Well,
दूसरा व्याख्यान हुआ जा रहा है.
Yes.
So I think
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Rao, Dr. Rao,
Yes. Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Rao, please request Professor Dubey to speak
Yes, yes,
something.
he will be responding.
Because
yes,
some
he
questions
will be
were there.
responding to the question by Barsa Bisoi. Well, maybe Barsa Bisoi
Yes.
is a student. Well, because Dr. Dubey talked about sadhana, chanting, and samadhi, all in the path of spirituality. So she has a confusion in mind whether Professor Dubey equates philosophy with spirituality. Professor Dubey. Well,
before attempting to Varshi's question, I just wanted Jim kindly from you are. Jim?
Some network issue. Well, sir, we are not able to hear you proper, sir.
Well, I'm audible.
Sir, not clearly audible, sir. Sir, not clearly audible, sir.
I am or not? Achha. Is audible clearly?
Yes, sir. Now audible, sir. Yes, carry on, sir.
It is audible?
Yes, sir. Now audible, sir. Carry on.
Okay, I wanted to wanted to about Jim stuff. She just giving her.
Can I make a suggestion? Can I make a suggestion?
Well, some network issue is there at the end of Professor Dubey. Well, let us, in the meantime, see what other professors have to say. We have with us Professor Ranjit Ghosh. Dr. Ghosh, welcome, sir. You make your point, sir. So I think by the time Professor Dubey will be ready back line, huh? Yes, Professor Ghosh. Yes.
Thank you, Professor Rao. We must thank Professor Tiwari for bringing us to a new line of thinking that as advocated by Agrahar Maharaj, and that is the Saha Astitvada or coexistentialism. Now, the thing is, this Madhyastha Darshana, normally what we are acquainted with the middle course of thinking in philosophy, one in Aristotle and another one in Buddha. Buddha's the version of Uchchedavada and Astittvavada. In between that view, we get a Madhyama Darshana. Similarly, in Aristotle, we find a philosophy of golden mean. Now, here is a philosopher. So, I personally is immensely benefited by Anil Tiwari's presentation of this Agrahar Maharaj Madhyastha Darshana. Because this is a very, we should say, this is a philosophy which is the requirement of the time. It is to be inculcated. It is to be put in the form of philosophy course somewhere in every universities, because they are proposing a Jivan Vidya program, and that Jivan Vidya program is very much necessary for not only our individual lives but our interpersonal living in society at large. And similarly, if this Jivan, I personally feel this Jivan Vidya program, the philosophy behind it, normally they put this Jivan Vidya program at the individual level for the individual, the understanding of the individual mind and leading the hierarchy through the sadhana, samadhi and sanyam. But if this can be extended to the national and international level, then we find this type of philosophy can bring an international order, a humanistic international order in a globalized world. I think Professor Tiwari will support this move, that there should be a move to enlarge the extend the philosophy of Madhyastha Darshana to the international arena. Thank you. This is my observation.
Yes, sir. This is really in Delhi. It is already implemented right from the school level, and AICT is very vigorously pursuing this. That it should be taught to all the engineers in the country, because it is engineering which is doing a lot more changes in the physical reality. So they must have human concern, and this philosophy is proposed a kind of way out from these problems. So it is being pursued at different levels, and we wish that yes, it is percolating down to every level of nursery schooling, and then of course there are grades of courses. And wonderful thing is that the modern education system, where we have mass people engaged, so it should be discussed at every level. A parent must discuss it with their children. Children must discuss among themselves. Then neighbors should also discuss. So wherever we gather, some discussion must.
Next question.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Tiwari.
Professor Srinivas has also
Yes, Professor Dubey. Well,
in fact, I'm sorry, there was a connection problem. I was just asking about the Kalita's introduction, and the question I will very brief and say about whatever the sadhana, spirituality, and Varsha has asked and other persons. First of Jim Kalita, she has raised one question about the traditionality and oldness and putting the cart before the horse. If every path, if it is old, then it has to be eradicated, then we shall be keep on building new path, and our whole life shall be engaged in that only. So philosophy by its definition has to be discarded. So the question was, I don't think it is so plausible. And however, Dr. Anil has given a fairly long answer to that.
Okay, thank you, Professor Dubey. Thank you.
Spirituality is something. Shall I speak further?
Carry on, sir. Carry on, sir. Carry on.
Regarding the sadhana, spirituality, actually, wisdom. Let us focus on this. Wise और दर्शन कैसे संभव होगा कि आपके माइंड में एक साथ आप 10 चीजों को देख सकें, अवेयरनेस बढ़ सके, उसी के साथ एक्टिविटी बढ़ेगी, उसके ही साथ क्रिएटिविटी बढ़ेगी, उसी के साथ पर्सनालिटी बढ़ेगी, उसी के साथ मैग्नानिमिटी बढ़ेगी. ये सारी चीजें लिंक हैं. और साधना इज अ वे, इज अ टूल. It is in itself generating a kind of quality and qualifying for becoming wise to wiser. Itself involve and evolves lot of things, lot of experiences and lot of activities, and basis to them energy levels. सारा पकेगा जब तो खाएंगे. तो ये सब करने के लिए तैयार रहें. यही सब नहीं करवा पाते, इसीलिए फिलॉसफी पॉपुलर नहीं है. हम दूसरे के अंदर प्रवेश नहीं कर पाते, इग्नाइट नहीं कर पाते, कनेक्ट नहीं हो पाते, सेंसिटाइज नहीं कर पाते अपने विद्यार्थियों को. कैसे कनेक्ट होंगे, कैसे चेंज होगा और कैसे उनमें इंटरेस्ट आएगा और कैसे वो परिवर्तन होंगे, ये सब चीजें जो हैं बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण है, टीचिंग में भी, रिसर्च में भी और जॉब प्रोस्पेक्टिव्स में भी. सो टोटल ओवरऑल everything is there. It is required how we can form, deform, inform and perform. All these things are there. ये सब कहने के साथ साथ करवाने की क्षमता होनी चाहिए, तब दर्शन जो है दिखाई भी देगा और जीवन में घटित भी होगा और परिवर्तन भी अनुभूत होगा. तब ये सब जितने एब्स्ट्रैक्ट और मोक्ष और XYZ हैं वो सारे दिखाई देंगे. उनका रास्ता या जो एक लैंडमार्क्स हैं कम से कम वो दिखाई देंगे. फिलॉसफी इन सब चीजों को इनकम्पास करता है. केवल बातचीत से बात नहीं बनेगी. On, as I have already spoken earlier, whatever I have spoken, if anybody is having doubt, I can at least show the path, I can at least ignite. That way I have realized at this juncture of my life, that is what I am speaking. However, I have decided not to go on more speaking, but to change and transform the life of the people, whoever is coming to me as a student or whatever way. So this is what the philosophy, if anybody is having doubt, this is doubt on his own self or herself, his potentiality, not on the philosophy or not on the tools and method of the philosophy.
Thank you, Professor Dubey, for your understanding and your way of responding to the entire issue. And thank you very much. Well, we have with us Srinivasan Krishnamurthy, sir. Well, he has given a question in the chat box. If you want to say directly, sir, you are welcome. Or should I ask the question to...
Yes, sir. Good evening to all professors assembled here. Sir, welcome. And my friend, Professor Dr. Sri Anil Tiwari and Sri Dubey, sir, and also the moderators and admins. Sir, my question to Sri Professor Anil Tiwari Shab is that in my perception, the Madhyastha Darshana, I think we are dissecting, I emphasize the word, dissecting Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. I think already the Westerners have started doing that, but I think it is not fair to proceed further with that. Your views on that, please.
Dr. Tiwari, very brief, please.
It's not dissection. It would be better to say that it's a kind of integration.
But how do you say that it's integration, sir?
Look at the way individual is understood. Individual is not understood purely in terms of spiritual element or in terms of just physical being. So here what is talked about is human being. There is no pretension to say anything regarding the spirituality or materiality. And he is very emphatic on this part, Agrahar Nagaraj, that the Indian tradition had not properly analyzed human being. There was too much analysis regarding what is Atman, what is Purusha, etc. And certainly there was analysis regarding physical things, and because of that Ayurveda developed. But there was no study of human being. One may agree or disagree, that is fine, but he says that there was no proper study of human being and human being as coexistence of self and body.
Thank you, Dr. Tiwari, for a very good response.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you for your responses also and your understanding. Well, one thing, it is by Shravani Mishra. Well, she has a good point to make. She says that the philosophical ideas or the ethical the models or the value system that we see or that we study in philosophy, and they somehow or the other, well, the philosophical ideas maybe, they somehow or the other, they have at the core, they are at the core of every discipline, and they form an essence which somehow are, as Professor Dubey has pointed out, they are invisible. Okay, but and that's a great problem, what Shravani Mishra sees, and she says because of that invisibility factor, different subjects, different disciplines, they are advancing without any sort of coherence. Okay, so that's why there is no parity in the various disciplines. Had the undercurrent that philosophy generates, that philosophy finds itself in different disciplines, had been recognized, maybe the different subjects, different disciplines would have somehow coherently managed issues, and that would have made a healthy living, a happier living, but that is not happening. So how do you see? Well, I request Professor Dubey to say this. Professor Dubey. Well, again, connectivity issue. Well, yes, Dubey.
What actually I understood, Dr. Om Narayanji, that this values and ethical issues which are there in all subjects, and they are become invisible. How and why they become invisible, I will just give an example and close it. Like there are several tracks are there in the platform, railway platform, and the longest, if we have to perform the journey, we have to reach on the proper platform. So if we are ignorant of the platforms, that is our own fault. We need to go to the information system and get proper information. We need to be properly guided by the persons whom we are receiving the informations. So we have to evolve, and we have to strive for this evolution of our own self. So the onus is first and primost lying on us. This is the one thing. And how these things are unmanifested, or these are hidden, or these are not properly manifested with our sadhana, with our practices, within our own selves. It is starting point is within our own self, within our own activity, within our preferences, and within all our compromises that we are compromising with our comfort zone. We have to come out and do, then we will realize the value, worthiness, and elevation, realization and worthiness of our own each and every activity. So this is what.
Okay, thank you, Dubey sir. Well, two questions we'll take, two more. Well, we have with us Dr. Alok Tandon, and then we'll go for Professor Pramod Kumar Das sir. Well, Dr. Tandon, any observation to make on this day, sir? Any observation to make, sir? Dr. Tandon. Well, he's not unmuting. Well, I request Dr. Pramod Kumar Das to make his observations. Our host. Yes, Dr. Tandon.
Hello.
Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. Namaskar. Welcome, sir.
Actually, namaskar, sir. Actually, due to some disturbances, I could not hear the lectures properly. So it's not proper to respond to them. I could only hear Tiwari's lecture last part. So what to say? But the thing is, the concern for philosophy is genuine. But first we must find out why philosophy has lost glorious place in not only in disciplines but also in life. And why Indian philosophy has also lagged behind. So these are some of the difficult questions, but unless and until we ponder over them, we cannot reach to any good results for the future consideration. And it is not very much concerned with the Madhyas Darshan. That is good that Nagaraj has taken this initiative to think about the body part, the material part of human being. But my concern goes further. My observation is that unless and until you understand the age, the society, the current form of world order we live in, we cannot understand or propound a philosophy relevant to that. Do we really understand? Have we done justice to social and political philosophy in our philosophy teachings? It has been considered as somewhat less relevant, less important part of the teachings of philosophy. So that's why we fail to understand why we were slaved, what is colonialism, what is post-colonialism, what is the capitalist world order in which we live in, what is the globalized world order, what is this, why we are being swayed away by the fake needs, the needs which are being created in us. What Tiwari ji was talking, that it is enough to have one house, it is enough to have few clothes, but why we need more than that? Because the whole corporate world, the profit motive, the whole industrial system in which it is being run, and the way it advertises, the way it creates fake needs in us, that has to be understood. And why all this money, why we need all this money? Because we need power. And this power and recognition is being given to the person who has got all these things. So the value system of the society is not independent of the social order we live in. And unless and until we understand the economic structure of the society, we cannot change the value system of the society as well as the individual. So all the philosophy professors I have seen, the children are not convinced by their parents, their fathers. They want to go their own way. They want to earn more and more money because they want to live successfully, happily in this material world. So to talk about the old traditions, to talk about the history of philosophy, to talk about the spiritual sadhana, this is all, I think, irrelevant for the development of society, development of philosophy in the current age. Unless and until we understand the age we live in, we cannot produce the philosophy relevant for that. We have seen a lot of philosophical development in the West, but we always talk about cultural West is different from us. So their understanding of self nowadays is very, very much different. The whole idealistic systems have been rejected there. What we have done, we have not taken the understanding how to inculcate the scientific spirit as well as the scientific picture of the world within us. We only talk about spirituality, we talk about some sort of eternal being, some sort of eternal entity, which are all not very relevant to live in this world. So I think we must look into the way to apply philosophical techniques as well as the philosophical knowledge we have for the problems of the today, for the social problem, for the individual problems of the day. And only then philosophy can relate itself to the world we live in. Only there we can have hope. We cannot have hope with just repeating all the old doctrines and the texts of history of philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tandon. Well, your observations are really good, and the questions that you have raised are fundamental and genuine. Well, Dr. Tiwari is not with us because he has left for his mess, because there are calls from his mess to have his meal. Well, Pramod Das, sir, well, please, Dr. Das, Dr. Pramod Kumar Das, please, your observations, please.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, audible and visible.
Professor Dubey spoke about darshan and Professor Tiwari spoke about philosophy. Philosophy and darshan are two different subjects in the sense as they are interpreted. The moment we are discussing about philosophy, we are debating about a particular intellectual activity. But darsana is not that. So, whether we are talking about darshan or philosophy, that should be decided first. Yes, if we are talking about philosophy, that it is nothing but intellectual understanding, better understanding, the best understanding from any given perspective, if that is philosophy, and if philosophy is the linguistic analysis, if philosophy is the materialistic consciousness, pragmatic awareness, if this is philosophy, and if philosophy defines the psychophysical human being, then darshan has no problem with this type of interpretation of it, because it is also part of human life. Kama and artha, these are also necessary for human life as purusartha. But that is not enough. Only the pursuit of artha, only the pursuit of artha, without anything is anartha. And only the pursuit of kama leads to vasana, leads to disorder, disharmony. So intellectual pursuit is necessary because man is rational. But I am understanding. Who understands that I am understanding? Who is the witness of my understanding? That I understood this concept. I understood this dialectic. These two possibilities are correct from their own perspectives. This is my view. My view is different from his view. Who is judging all these ideas together? Who is witnessing? Who is engaged very sincerely with our dialectical approaches? So there is something beyond mind, beyond our psychophysical existence. If we do not accept it, that means we are far from our own identity. We are searching our identity in the material world. We are searching our identity in the empirical world. We are searching our identity in the linguistic analysis, in material prosperity. But we are not searching our identity in our originality, in our self, as Professor Dubey spoke about. That is darsana. So there is no question in darsana, no doubt in darsana, no argument in darsana, no linguistic analysis in darsana. There is only realization, and that is personal. That cannot be discussed in any university. And that is yoga. So yoga is not debatable. It cannot be attained academically, intellectually. So this is the difference between darshan and philosophy. Yes, philosophical activity is very much necessary. Rational aptitude is necessary. Without that, man cannot exist. But that existence leads to existentialism, which ends in frustration. But here our existence defines our being. What I am the self. So if I am established in self, I can have a better mind, I can have a better body, I can have a better society, I can have a better education, and I can have a better sanskar. If I am not groomed with my own being, then all types of manifestations through me will be in disorder. There will be no harmony. I am something in the morning and something in the night, speak something and do something. This type of personality I shall have because mind can be confined with only dialectics. Mind cannot transcend it. So beyond the possibilities, we have to find our own self who is witnessing all types of agreements and disagreements, all types of views, all types of philosophical discussions. That I am. I am that self. Then I shall rule the world because I am established in myself. There is no duality at all, no dialectic at all. That sanskara we lack, and that is the crisis. Crisis is not that there is lack of understanding that can be repaired, that can be managed, that can be achieved by giving this type of training programs as we are discussing about. But this cannot be attained without sadhana, without spiritual sadhana. So, in darsana, knowledge means becoming. If you know, you become. If I know that I am Brahman, I am Brahman. If I know that I am mind, I am mind. If I know that I am matter, I am matter. My thought is my existence. If I think that I am Brahman, I am Brahman. No duality for me. I am not misunderstood. Misunderstanding is there when I am identified with my mind. I am bound to remain the boundary of dialectics. I shall compromise with one horn, one possibility, according to my convenience and according to my convictions, according to my preoccupied thoughts. So very beautiful discussion, very beautiful evening. I shall say, out of 200 webinars, this will be one of the best webinars. Beautiful discussion. It is clearly visible the distinction between philosophy and darshan. So as Dr. Tandon said, that the old doctrines should not be repeated. So philosophy should exist and darshan should exist. We should not confuse philosophy with darshan. And we should not confuse darshan with philosophy. We don't have any problem with philosophy. But in addition to philosophy, one should have darsana. Darsana means the vision of the truth. Vision of the truth is darsana. If I don't have that vision, then I am a blind man. I am going to assess the elephant. That is the point. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Das, for looking into both the talks and making a distinction between philosophy and darsana. And very nicely, you have said that philosophy, if we restrict that to all those intellectual activities that we consider to be something that are rational, that are aimed at better and better understanding, that aims at clarity. Well, that part is that is good and well on. But one thing that you have pointed out is we should not be confused between philosophy and darshana. Darshana is something. It's a matter of realization. It is something that is personal. It is something that is yogic. And in darshana, we see self as the witness of all the activities that we do. May those activities be called philosophical or intellectual or rational. And behind all these activities, there is a self, and that is what Darshana gives much importance to, and philosophy somehow, from the Western trend, fails to see this. But Dr. Anil has tried to bring about a coexistence between the mind and body, the mental and the physical, by taking the perspective from Agrahar Nagaraj. Well, he has nicely tried to see unification of mind and body, and also, in addition to that, if we bring in darshana, we see self as a witness of all the activities, may that be empirical, may that be intellectual, may that be anything. So self as a witness, if we take, then we are in the land of darshana. Well, R.P. Palaniswamy, he wants to say something. R.P. Palaniswamy, I see his microphone unmuting. Well, do you want to say something, sir? Well, R.P. Palaniswamy, well, his microphone is on. Well, I don't see any response from him. Anyway, so it's a very good evening for all of us. We discussed a lot of things, and very clear things have come out, and there should be no confusion between philosophy and darshana. We should not try to make a category mistake by entering into each other. So we should see darshana at a greater height, and it's a darshana means it's a direct realization. It's the true vision of reality, and that can be possible only through the yogic way of life, and with Professor Dubey has very nicely tried to highlight. Thank you very much. Now over to Dr. Kailash Chandra Maharana for carrying on the further proceedings, and also request him to propose the formal vote of thanks.
Okay, Palaniswamy. Palaniswamy, would you like to speak something? Hello?
Sir, we shall close.
Okay.
Maybe 9.
Okay. Now, actually, today it's a very nice webinar. We all have enjoyed. And over to Professor Dr. K. Omanan Rao to propose the formal vote of thanks, and request Professor Pramod Kumar Das to close the program. And I request Professor K. Omanan Rao to propose a formal vote of thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Maharana.
Vote of thanks, Dr. Rao.
Sir,
only one sentence before closing and vote of thanks. Vote of thanks.
Yes, sir.
Because this, our philosophy family, shall keep on organizing such a wonderful program and webinars. I am just making one statement here, like not taking any name. Who has been down philosophy, particularly in philosophy, and I invite anyone who needs, and it is possible to realize that inviting so onward in webinar, anybody is having thought on Indian philosophy.
Sir, we are not able to hear you, sir. We're not able to hear you proper, sir. Now clear. Yes, now speak, sir.
Maybe because of I was just telling, if anyone onward also in other webinars, even present today and onwards, having any doubt on potentiality of darshan or his own self in Indian perspective, so my understanding that they are realizable, and he is coming, will make him to realize he is able to follow whatever it is for realization. It is standing the doubt. That's all.
Well, Professor Dubey has made an observation towards the end, but sorry, but I could not hear him proper because of the network issue. Well, it would be fine if Professor Dubey communicates his message in the group, so that would be beneficial to all, because I don't know whether others could hear him or not. Because of the network issue, I could not hear him. Anyway, I should thank Professor Dubey for his presence, for being connected with us, for showing us the way, and also presenting very nicely on philosophy and its connectivity to the job market and all that research activities, what sort of research we need to take, what sort of issues we need to discuss, and how philosophy can be so close and connected to life. So these are the issues that Professor Dubey tried to focus on and is working on that. And the last session also he said that ethics, which is which serves as the core in philosophy, now it has become a compulsory subject in UPSC and other competitive examinations. And you'll be happy to know that our higher education department yesterday has served a notification that there would be an ethics paper in all the 6 semesters of for the undergraduate students. May that be science, may that be arts, may that be commerce. So yesterday there was a notification by the Higher Education Council of our state that there would be a 25 marks ethics paper for each of the semesters. We have total of 6 semesters for the undergraduate students. So in all the semesters we'll be having an ethics paper. So it's a good move, and which Professor Dubey was speaking on during the course of his last lecture, and it has materialized well. I could see the notification yesterday, and thanks to the department, and also for I also thank Professor Dubey for having such a thought in his mind, and such thought is materializing. So as you think, so things also become. So the vibration should start in the mind, and once a positive vibration starts in the mind, they also do materialize, and it's a beautiful example for this. Thank you, sir, for your lecture too, and I hope that whatever you have said, well, they come true in the days to come. Thank you very much for your lecture and for your presence. And also thank Dr. Anil Kumar Tiwari for his lecture on philosophy and philosophical activities, and also he has tried to make a distinction between a sort of living and life. And thank you, I should thank him. Well, he's not there. He's he has rushed for his mess to have his food. Okay, anyway, I should thank Dr. Tiwari too for his presence and also for his nice lecture. I should thank Dr. Ranjit Ghosh, Dr. Alok Tandon, Shravani Mr. Madam, Srinivasan Krishnamurthy, and Dr. Kailash Chandra Mahana, who made a brief synopsis, and also our host and admin, who beautifully towards the end tried to make a distinction between darshana on one hand and philosophy on another. And he said they belong to 2 different categories. If you see, well, not exclusive in a true sense, but you should not confuse between two different issues. So there should not be any sort of overlapping. So when you talk of darshana, it is purely a matter of self-realization, and you should not confuse philosophy with that. So thank you, Dr. Das, for your observation and for your message. So I should thank even Dr. Ranjit Ghosh for his observations and his observations and comments. So I should thank everybody connected on this webinar, all the senior professors who are connected. So it was a beautiful evening. A lot of things have come to the fore. And from a personal side, I say I have enjoyed this lecture, and hopefully trying to see more and more lectures of this sort. And I request Professor Dubey to have one article for our philosophy family based on the last lecture or this lecture, and would be very happy for that. So I request Dr. Dubey. So sir, आपके लिए सर, आप तो बहुत व्यस्त है, बिजी है, हम फिर भी आप नवंबर 25 तक एटलीस्ट थोड़ा सा आपका एक आर्टिकल होगा हमारा मतलब एडिटेड वॉल्यूम में. सो बहुत अच्छा होगा सर, बहुत अच्छा लगेगा हम लोगों को. और आपका जो थॉट है, जो आप लास्ट लेक्चर में आपने जो कहा कि एथिक्स जो है, जो फंडामेंटल है, सभी लोगों में है और सभी सब्जेक्ट्स में है, लेकिन हम उसको आगे नहीं ले पा रहे हैं. सो एटलीस्ट एकेडमिक लेवल में हमारा स्टेट में ये बात हुई है. सो एथिक्स को इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया है. कितना दूर सक्सेसफुल होगा मैं नहीं कह सकता, लेकिन एक नोटिफिकेशन तो आया है जरूर. तो आपका जो वाइब्रेशन है, जो स्पिरिचुअल थिंकिंग है, सो उसको बेसिस करके आपका एक पेपर तैयार कीजिए, ताकि बहुत लोगों तक आपका जो मैसेज पहुंचे और बहुत लोग आपके मार्ग में चले. और फिलॉसफी जो दर्शन है, फिलॉसफी को थोड़ा सा छोड़ें और जो दर्शन की बात जो कर रहे हैं, वो दर्शन वास्तव में neutralize हो और सबकी जीवन सुखमय हो. Thank you, sir. So I thank everybody for this beautiful evening. So thank you, thanking everybody. Now I request Professor Pramod Das to close this mission. So namaskar, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Over to Dr. Das for closing this meeting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now the meeting is closed with our gratitude to both the speakers. I shall request Professor Dubey. He wanted to say something that we could not hear him. So, sir, please write in my WhatsApp, personally in my WhatsApp, and I can get it. Thank you, sir. And also write your next topic. We shall discuss. Thank you. We are grateful to Professor Dubey.
Sir, pranam, sir. Professor Dubey. Pranam, Professor Tiwari. Pranam. We are really grateful to your talk.
Yes. Thank you. Now the meeting is closed.